Hello, everybody. This is the Lee Cole 3 podcast with my partner, James Proctor, and a guy that I've been trying to get on here for a while. He probably doesn't even remember if I was trying, but it was through another person that was on the show, and Chad Marks. And Chad, I really appreciate you giving us this time, and really looking forward to doing this interview.
No problem, man. I appreciate you for having me.
And your story is quite amazing because I didn't know nothing about your story until I started doing a lot of research, and then I seen that you were from Rochester, New York, and I lived up in that area in Syracuse and Utica, and people don't realize how violent of an area you grew up in. Rochester is absolutely no joke. They don't realize those cities upstate are as bad as they are. So why don't you just start from your growing up in Rochester?
All right. So, my story is probably all too familiar, right, in this area. Father was a drug addict when I was 2 or 3 years old. He shot at me and my mother with a 12-gauge shotgun. We end up escaping. We go to my grandmother's. And eventually my mom meets another guy, and they end up together. They have my sister. But long story short, man, grew up in a area that they call Ghost Town, in name and purpose, I guess. Dangerous area. Riddled with crime, riddled with drugs. In fact, on my YouTube channel, I put up a little short about how dangerous Rochester is. We had more murders per person than Chicago. And I said this on another interview where I was like, hey, man, Rochester is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. And people left comments, oh, man, get the hell out of here. So that's why I posted that little short the other day, because it's facts.
Yes.
But yeah, I grew up, my father was a drug addict. Growing up, my stepfather, my mother, pretty much poor single mother on welfare. We did have a stepfather that ended up, in the house and really didn't, he was just a small time hustler. So we grew up tough, man. By the time I was 12 or 13, I had a friend around the corner named Booper, who I still associate with now, was selling bags for his uncle. When I say bags, I'm talking about dime bags of cocaine back then. And you know what? He had, nice sneakers. He had the triple fat goose coat back then. And I'm like, damn, bro, I don't want to be poor. I remember there was a time when I had 2 pairs of jeans, and a couple t-shirts, a couple shirts. So I'm like, man, I don't want to live like that. And, I just kind of jumped on his coattail, like, yo, I'm trying to do that. And I started selling drugs at a young age. Eventually I go to New York State prison at the age of 16. I catch a couple felonies. I get a 2 to 6, go to state prison, come home from state prison, catch a violation, go back to state prison for 2 years.
And the first time you went to prison, it actually was Attica. Am I right?
In Attica, yeah, when I was 17 years old.
So they throw a 17-year-old into Attica.
We were in Wyoming, right? Wyoming Correctional Facility, which is across the street from Attica. And I'm in there with a kid that, grew up with me. He was like my brother, my best friend in the world. We're over there on Christmas Eve, 1996, I think it was. Christmas Eve, I ended up getting stabbed in the face, in the eye. We get into it with these kids in there, and they stab us a couple times. It's a serious, rumble in there over a basketball magazine. I end up going to the hospital. I leave the hospital with stitches in my face. I go to Attica. He gets out of the hospital like 4 or 5 days later, and they send him to Kasaki. So he ends up, and then I do that, 2 years. I come home, I catch the violation, do another 2 years, home for 14 months, and I get arrested and sentenced eventually to a mandatory minimum of 40 years in federal prison. And now your viewers are probably like, 40 years? Well, what the hell is he doing on here?
Yeah, well, and I'll let you ask, I'm going to ask you a question and I'll throw it over to James. This is, what I found very fascinating about your story was the guidelines they got you on. They got basically, you got 10 years on your actual sentence. And then you had 2 gun charges. The first one, you got 5 years. The second one, you got 25 years. So on the second gun charge, you got more than 2 times as the drug charge. That's amazing when you hear that.
That's what they were doing in federal court. That's how they were banging people. You get 5 for the first gun, 25 for the second. They're stacked on top of whatever you get for the drugs. So I had a 40-year mandatory minimum.
So you have a lot of guys in prison for stuff. If they got, say, a 357 Magnum, or a drug dealer has to have a gun on him, that gun can put him away longer than his actual drug charges, huh?
You can have that 357, and I could sell you an ounce of weed with a 357, and I get 5 years for that 1 ounce of, for that one transaction because I had the gun. Possession of a firearm or furtherance of a drug trafficking crime and or crime of violence. Now I go sell James a ounce. Next week with the same gun. Now I get another 25 years for that gun. So I got 5 from selling it to you and having a gun on me, and then selling him an ounce, and I get another 25. And that's what they would do. The government would let you just continue with these drug transactions, continue doing what you're doing. Some guys got 100 years. Some guys got 500 years.
And
Some
why
guys
do you
got 200 years.
and why do you think they allow these? There has to be a reason behind it why they're just throwing these young people in prison without any thought about it. And why do you think they do that? Is it being done on purpose, or is this just something that got out of control?
Well, I mean, it was that, the tough on crime thing. I think prosecutors and judges misinterpreted the law. So what it really was meant to be was a recidivist enhancement, right? So let's say, I go to prison with drugs and a gun. I don't learn my lesson. I get 10 for the drugs, 5 for the gun. I get out. Now I'm selling drugs again and got a gun. Well, now it's 25 years. But they weren't doing that. They were just stacking them in the same indictment. And of course, they were doing it on purpose. They had me. They had me on the first gun. And they left us out there and let us keep going. Then they busted us a month later. And now they got the second gun so that they could get that amount of time on people.
Wow. James?
Yeah, so kind of related to that. So I did read at least the first half of your book, and it's an excellent book. Really what I appreciate about it is that you're very real in the book. You also do a good job of putting the reader in the scene. So you talk about when you first are found guilty. You go to Big Sandy, but you have to go through Atlanta federal prison, as a transfer station. So it's very amazing to me. So I just want to tell you that you did an excellent job with your book. So I have it on Kindle, just to let you know.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and so looking at this from a criminal justice reform and standpoint, I think one of the issues I see is that people don't have the ability to get competent legal counsel. And so how important is the ability to pay for an attorney versus using a public defender, and how does that been playing into these long prison sentences?
I mean, this is the deal, right? I mean, a lot of lawyers, unfortunately, a lot of lawyers don't give a shit. Let's say that
Yeah.
you go rob a McDonald's, right? And there's 15, 16-year-old kids working there. How about the lawyers' kids work at the McDonald's, 3 miles away from where you robbed that one? I
Mhm.
think they look at it like, that could be their kids in there, right? A lot of lawyers
Yeah.
don't give a shit, bro. They
No.
collect the money and that's pretty much it. They collect the money and, it's over with. So, good legal representation. Let me just say this, right? I work with lawyers all over the country because I have a paralegal company, right?
Yeah.
And there are some good lawyers out there. One of them, Jillian Harrington, she was one of my
Mhm.
lawyers, just a phenomenal person, New York area, phenomenal lawyer. I've worked with the Federal Defender's Office in New York City, the Eastern District, Deidre Von Dornum, phenomenal lawyer. So people are
Mhm.
like, oh man, I got a public pretender. Man, listen, when the cards are when you commit a crime, man, the cards are stacked against you, right? I mean, we can
Yeah.
all admit that. So, if you did something, yeah, I mean, there's probably some evidence. So it's not easy to walk in there and just win cases and, do this and do that. But sometimes you can hire, good counsel where they dig in, they find the mistakes. There's always mistakes, but a
Mhm.
lot of lawyers just don't have the time. They got a case file this big, they don't have to, hey, man, cop them out, cop them out, cop them out. But I mean, are there good lawyers? There are. Are there lawyers that really suck? Yeah, there's a whole lot of them. Many of them.
Yeah.
That when you talk about good lawyers, I mean, how the heck did you get John Gleason on pro bono?
So this is what happened, right? I wrote the first compassionate release motion in the country to ever win. I
Oh,
wrote
wow.
I wrote the Conrado Cantu case. And he ends up winning and he gets out. I tell him, look, dude, I'm going to practice. I think I'm right. But the whole John Gleason thing stems from the Holloway case. I don't know if you guys are familiar. But anyway, Holloway was this kid that he ends up with like 50 years and Gleason's the
Mhm.
judge and he sentences him for stack 924Cs, the gun charge.
Mhm.
Reaches out to Loretta Lynch, long story short, says, hey, look, you should do the right thing in this case. They're like, no, we're not reopening the case. He's like, well, I'm going to have to reconsider some stuff. So
Mhm.
they're like, okay, we'll reopen it and let you resentence them because we don't want, bad law on this. So that's what they end up doing. But I had wrote to Holloway's lawyer, who is a phenomenal lawyer, Harlan
Mhm.
Prolitz in New York. So I write Harlan from jail and say, hey, man, this is my name. This is who I am. This is what I've done since I've been in prison. He says, look, I can't really help you right now, Chad, but let me hook you up with somebody. So he hooks me up with Gleason, right? I call them, I talk to them, And they're like, look, man, with this prosecutor and your situation, do some more programming, get a college degree under your belt and then come back. Well, I did that. I listened to Gleason. He said, go get a college degree. I got one while I was in prison. And then right around the time when I get that college degree, they pass the First Step Act, right? So once they pass the First Step Act, I write to Gleason now. And I say, hey, man, do you guys remember me? And they're like, yeah, let's look back into this and whatever. I filed my own pro se motion. And once I filed that motion, that's when Gleason says, look, I'm going to help you for free. I think they believed I was going to be the first person in the country to win on a Stack 924C, although I wasn't, but they believed it at the time, and they got on my case, and they helped me, man. I mean, Marissa Taney, phenomenal lawyer over there with him. Elizabeth Costello, forever grateful to her, and Gleason. I mean, he's just when you meet him in person, he's just a different dude. You know what I mean?
And give us a rundown exactly who John Gleason was so people understand why it was a pretty phenomenal thing that you got a lawyer like that.
He was the prosecutor for John Gotti. He's the guy that secured the conviction. He then became a federal judge for 23 years, stepped off the bench because he was tired of, lighting people up pretty much and, doing things that the government probably shouldn't be doing, like taking a 24-year-old and giving him 40 years. Did I deserve to go to prison? 100%. Did I deserve a 40-year sentence? Definitely not. I deserve to go to prison, but I didn't deserve 40 years. So that's who John Gleason is. Wrote the Second Circuit Handbook, just a phenomenal lawyer, super intelligent. Sat, I believe, on this new sentencing commission where all the changes were made. If it was my guess, I'd say he was probably the architect and, the person that was really pushing. He's well respected, very intelligent, very stern, didn't play no games, was pretty straightforward with me. Like, this is what it is. And I've always been kind of, people always tell me, you're an aggressive dude, bro. Like the way you talk to people and the way you pull up on people on the street and talk to prostitutes, you're too aggressive. So, I have that aggressive approach. I think it's a New York thing, right? I don't do it perfectly, but I'm just an aggressive dude. But he wasn't going for it. You get aggressive with John Gleason, he gets aggressive back.
Right. And he has a lot more behind him when he comes at you. This is the guy that took down John Gotti,
A serious guy.
Yeah. Okay, James, you want to?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I found interesting too is that when when they say Chad Marks, I see this in some of your biographies that different people say, they call you a prison lawyer. And so, I hear positive. So with inmates or convicts inside the system, what are their thoughts on prison lawyers? I've heard some people like them. Some people think they're don't really help, but how important are prison lawyers, meaning that not an actual attorney that's in prison, but someone like yourself that you study, you understand law, you become educated, and how important is that in the system, and how successful are quote unquote prison attorneys on actually able to at least get an appeal overturned or some sort of positive outcome?
So this is the deal. You're probably talking about like Doug Berman, one of the best and biggest well-known names in the criminal justice field, Ohio State law professor.
Yeah.
He wrote an article about me. High-profile prison lawyer Chad Marks gets his sentence
Yes,
today.
exactly. That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Let me tell you about prison lawyers, right? I mean, you got a guy, Sean Hopwood. I don't know if you guys know who he is. Went to prison, armed bank robber, federal prison. Wins 3 cases in front of the Supreme Court as a prison lawyer. Regular lawyers don't do that. And he gets out and he goes on to become a law professor at Georgetown, phenomenal lawyer, instrumental in getting the First Step Act, wrote and passed, just a great guy. You got some phenomenal dudes that are in prison that are prison lawyers. You also have some guys that want to do your legal work for potato chips and sodas. If that's what they're doing your legal work for, you probably should, in most cases, pass. Like, no, I'm good. If a guy's going to do your $22.55 for $100 in potato chips and sodas, save your money and buy your own potato chips.
Yeah.
I would help people in prison. But I used to have some requirements, man. You got to go to GED. You got to go to the Leaders Breed Leaders. I facilitate over there. You want to get out of jail? You don't got no money? That's how you're going to pay me. You're going to come to my GED class. You're going to get your GED. You're going to work on getting out of prison. How many kids you got? 4? Okay. We're going to work on you being a real father, a real man, a real leader. You got to come to the Leaders Breed Leaders class, and I'll help you with your legal work. And I would do the shit for free. Some jailhouse lawyers are full of shit. A lot of them. But there's also a lot that are extremely intelligent because you spend a lot of time in there in the law library. That's what my day consisted of. Later on, I wasn't always a nice guy when I went to prison. I've said that numerous times. But later on, I started to change my life. I wanted to get out of prison. I got into the books. I started reading. And I feel like God gave me a gift, man, to interpret the law. And I think I write really well. That's why I win so many cases. An example, I probably helped over 100 men and women get out of prison. 5 life sentences. Lee's from New York. One of the dudes that, you know, started the G Shine Bloods, Chazzy Glenn. I talk about him all the time. I did his case. I got him knocked down from life to 30 years. The rapper Little Baby. I did his real father, not the guy that died, because that's not his real dad.
Right.
Was Rodney Love out of Tennessee. Got his life sentence reduced to 27 years. Russell Simmons, his adopted son, Jinx the Juvie, was on that Runs house. Did all his stuff. Won his 2255, got him back into court. His 25-year sentence is now reduced to 15. But I win a lot, man. But you know, my work speaks for itself. And I told you when I got out, you know, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be the voice of the voiceless. So I got a paralegal company, which I'm sure you guys know, Freedom Fighters Paralegal.
Freedom Fighters,
And we do real work, and my record speaks for itself. I'm not out here faking, just taking people's money. I'm out here winning. So when you win, people are like, man, that dude's winning.
That's great stuff.
A matter of fact,
we're doing it.
A matter of fact, you helped, you know, we're in the mob genre, and you helped a guy that is pretty well known in the mob genre. His name is Tommy Reynolds. And as people know, Shemta was the woman's name, and he went to a door, the gun went off, shot the woman in the face and killed her. And a couple people rolled on him. And he wound up doing, 50 years was his sentence. And recently we heard that his sentence was reduced, which I didn't realize you were behind that. So why don't you tell us something about that Tommy Reynolds situation and where it stands now?
So me and Tommy are really close friends, man. So people know, you know, I met Tommy when I was in Raybrook. I already knew who he was from seeing shows, and we ended up in this class called Alternative Violence Project Seminar. It was the first one at the prison. We got into that class, and it was a pretty intense class, man. One of the only rehabilitative classes in that whole prison I thought actually helped people and work. There was 2 different factions in that class. We had this group and that group, and my group was beefing with that group before we went into the class. And eventually, man, things ended up working out. But anyway, I would walk the yard with Tommy every single morning, man. We'd be out there walking at 6 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. Spinning the yard, and eventually I do help Tommy. I helped him with his 2241, helped him with his clemency, put a compassionate release motion together for him. And like I said before, I've done. I showed you guys a couple pictures. I'm probably going to do a story on Tommy this week, but really a dude that was a serious dude. I think there's some things in some of them shows that are said about him that he gets really upset about. Some drug use, doesn't like for people to ever refer to that. And I believe that Tommy's probably going to refile November 1st because the Sentencing Commission, like we just talked about John Gleason, the Sentencing Commission just passed some new stuff. So I think that, in my perspective, I think he may be out within the next year and a half. I think that you're going to see a bunch of people getting out, and I think Tommy Reynolds is one of them. What type of dude is he in prison? Intelligent dude, serious dude, and a dude that turned his life around. He's a real Christian. For those that don't know, he's a real Christian. And does he have remorse? He's got remorse, man, for what he did. He really, man, accidentally killed the wrong person. And it does affect him. It affects him every day. And I think that's one of the reasons why he did turn to God, not Catholic, Christian. So has he had some issues in prison here and there? You know, he had an issue with a cellie before that I think he had to crack once or twice. But definitely, man, a dude that, you know, it's, you know, the victim's family will be like, man, a dude doesn't deserve a second chance. Possibly they might say that, right?
Yeah.
But you know what, man? I mean, it's sad what happened, but I do think Tommy deserves a second chance, and I think he should get out now. Not 5-6 years from now.
How do you think Tommy feels when he hears people that have shows on here talk about him? A matter of fact, one person said when he heard that Tommy got his sentence reduced, he started saying that he was going to contact the people that reduced it and try to put it back where it was because he was such a bad guy. And this guy was actually on the robbery with him. So let
me just correct that for people so they know. Once that judge issued that decision, the judge isn't going back and changing it. I don't care who calls. I mean, Johnny Cochran could come back from the grave. I mean, the decision's the decision. You can't just come back and say, hey, I'm going to change my mind now. That's not how it works. So,
Right.
but I think that did bother Tommy, that, some of that stuff was out there. Because not bothered him that, he just didn't want to be involved in it. Tommy wants to get out of jail and live, a law-abiding life and live his best life. Is he a different dude now? 100%. Does Tommy deserve to get out of prison?
Was Tommy the drug addict they made him out to be?
No, not in prison. He's not. No.
No, I mean, because, people can say anything they want about people out here. They make Tommy sound like a raging crackhead that was running around shaking and guns were going off. Is that who he was?
Well, let me say this. I can't tell you that because I wasn't there. I'm a lot younger than Tommy. I can only give you my perspective on who Tommy is today. And he's not faking to get out of jail. He really is a different dude, a changed dude. I think the drug addiction stuff back then, yeah, it bothers him. He's embarrassed by it. It's not who he wanted to be. He doesn't want to be known by that, right? So whenever that little show would come on A&E and stuff, yeah, that shit would bother him, man. People would watch him like, oh, that's him. But yeah, that stuff did bother him, and I think that he's turned a different leaf over, and I doubt he'll ever be involved in anything like that ever again.
What other gangsters from the mob did you bump into that you knew?
Oh, I mean, I was with a lot of gangsters. Even in state prison, I was with Tony the Roach in state prison. Played on his baseball team. We were in Comstock together, Great Meadow. I was with when I was in MDC Brooklyn, dude. I was with Charles Corsaniglia and
Wow.
Was it Silent Dom? I was actually at Celly for like a week. And I was with Caracappa, man. Caracappa was my celly when he came to Coleman for 4 or 5 days till he ended up going where he wanted to go. And then I was with Whitey Bulger. I was in the hole at the same time Whitey Bulger was in the hole when he got stabbed. Honestly, I talked to him every day. He was in a wreck alone, cell alone. So he was in his own wreck cage. But I would talk to that dude. Dude, I'm Irish, right? And I know there's a lot of bad shit out there about Whitey, but I talked to him, dude. I wanted to pick his brain. Sometimes, when you're in a penitentiary, things happen every day, right? So you could go to rec, you're supposed to have an hour rec. Something would happen on a compound. They'd leave us out in the rec cages for 4 or 5 hours. And I'd be out there. And this happened all the time. So
what do you think of him, though? What do you think of Whitey Bulger? And do you know the guy, Loomis? He's doing a show or documentary about Whitey Bulger to kind of correct some of the, the things that aren't true, or to put things into a more accurate perspective.
Well, I don't really know Loomis, but what did I think about Whitey? I think he was a fascinating character. Yeah. You could see in his eyes, bro. Look, there's different people. I've seen this in his eyes and Caracappa, right? Steve Caracappa. You could see that he was a stone cold killer. See, Whitey didn't look like, when I was around him, in the hole at that time, he didn't look like the dude that got arrested, dude. He looked like he aged physically like 20 years. He was old. But his eyes, he still had those eyes where, you could see death in him, bro. Like you could see that this dude was a dangerous dude, man, at one time. I talked to him about Alcatraz. Honestly, I talked to him about, how, he avoided, law enforcement all them years. And, because I was thinking things in my head. I got a 40-year sentence. Don't ever think that I wasn't thinking about, man, I got to get out of here somehow, somewhere. And I would pick his brain about that stuff, talk to him. And dude, he would freely talk to us. You know what I mean? Yeah, he definitely didn't look like that when I ran into him.
And he looked older?
Yeah, man, his skin was drawn down. He was beat down, man. He was tired.
Now, what I found very suspicious, and we talked about this, is that Whitey Bulger was taken from a man pushing 90, and because he insults a nurse, he's transferred to a prison, put out by prisoners, and it's killed. That just something just doesn't sound right there.
So let me tell you this, right? Federal prison is a different animal. Some people have speculated, oh, they sent him there on purpose to get him killed. And look, dude, they do shit on purpose all the time. But honestly, they don't give a fuck. That's why he ended up at Hazleton. No one cares, bro. Nobody checks like, hey, this is Whitey Bulger. The guy in Grand Prairie, Texas, that, he's typing up where he's going to send this cat. Like, okay, he's 90, boom, boom, medical conditions. He probably doesn't even know who the hell Whitey Bulger is, as crazy as that sounds, right? Might be some 28-year-old kid working at the designation center.
And he just sees the name James Bulger.
That's it. You know who the hell James Bulger is, just a 90-year-old man that's got a life sentence. And, usually when you got a life sentence, you didn't, usually you probably didn't cooperate and stuff like that.
Did you ever come across the GS brothers?
Who?
The GS brothers. Well,
yeah, of course. I'm going to do a story on them this week.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
And you, so you met them inside?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of the Muse brothers, and from Boston. I'm sorry, but no, I know who Freddie is. I was not in prison with Freddie, but I do know
Yeah.
who Freddie is.
Because it's kind of like ironic that they put him, you know, Freddie was sent away by his boss who ratted on him. And you know, they put Whitey right there. It's like you couldn't even have a more perfect situation for Freddie when you think about it. And let's maybe say one thing: Freddie is not convicted of this crime yet. I'm just saying what is being said.
Let me just tell you about federal prison, right? Like I was with Stevie Burke from Boston, Adam Oliveri from New York. We were all in the same unit. They had the car. Listen, dude, you come there and you're from a certain area. I don't give a shit if you're from Florida, if you're from New York, you're from Boston. I mean, your people are going to do, they're looking for opportunities, man. They're looking for opportunities in federal prison to commit extreme violence on a scale that would make purgatory look like child's play. And when I say that, I mean that. It's not a joke. You walk into federal prison, it's real, man. This is it. This is what federal prison is. There's always guys signing up to kill, and no disrespect to Freddie or any of them cats, but they've said that he was in there, doing certain things, getting high, whatever.
Yeah.
Dudes don't, when dudes are in prison, bro, they're looking for an escape. Whether they use drugs in the street or not, they're looking for an escape. And dude, they're always, you got a life sentence. Dudes are always willing to kill in federal prison. There's no consequences, dude. What are they gonna do? Give you the death penalty?
Yeah, I mean, GS is looking at a couple life sentences already. I mean,
Yeah.
to him, it was James.
Yeah. So, a couple of things I wanted to touch on is we talk about prison reform, and one of the things that
James, I want to stop you. Hold your thought, because I want to explain something for your viewers.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
When we go towards the Whitey Bulger and the Freddie
Yeah.
B's, and dude, listen to me. In prison, I've experienced this. Dudes could be big shot dudes on the street, right?
Mhm.
And then they come to prison, and the image that you project is the image that you have to protect, right? Freddie's known as that mob guy that'll kill you. We don't go for no BS. So when Whitey shows up, in my perspective, Freddie didn't kill him because he, his, people ratted on him. He killed him because he allegedly killed him because he was Whitey Bulger and he's from that area. And you know what? I'm going to kill this cat because the image that I project is the image that I have to
rep
protect.
that he got for it.
Dude, I've been around, we had a Boston, New York car. We had an East Coast car. We did some bad things to people, bro. We did some vicious things to people, things that I'm not proud of, some things I'm not even willing to talk about on camera that we've done to people.
Right.
And I regret those decisions, bro, later on in life. But when you're living in that prison environment, that's the life that you're living. So Freddie had no choice. Did they put him in that unit purposely? Probably not. They don't give a shit who you are. They don't look you up and be like, oh, he's the guy that ran the Irish mob, and oh yeah, we better not put him in there. They don't care, dude.
Right.
They don't care if you live or die. But then when it happened, now there's like, oh shit. And then you had who was the dude, the sex offender dude in New York? He ends up hung in his cell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's killings all the time in federal prison. You just don't hear about them, right?
Right.
I think there was just a killing just now at McCrary. We didn't hear about that, but it just came up on.
Yeah, you don't hear about all of them. It happens every day or nearly every week at least.
I mean, people get stabbed on a daily basis. Someone's getting stabbed in a federal maximum security prison probably every day. Might be McCrary today, might be Beaumont tomorrow, might be Pollock, next week. But this is what happens, bro. So I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I just want to.
No. I mean, that's good perspective, though. And so, before we get into prison reform, though, talking about the different prisons that you were in, what would you say was the easiest, or the one that was, that you would say would be the least restrictive? Maybe that's a better word. And then which one would you say was the worst that you were part of?
I think Big Sandy was the worst prison in the country, man. At one time when I went there, extremely dangerous. USP Pollock was extremely, extremely dangerous.
Right.
Probably, as crazy as this sounds, the most dangerous potential was when I went to a low. I was in FN Lexington. You got guys in there with life sentences that are there for medical stuff. Guys from mediums, guys from lows. You got killers, stone cold gangsters, and you got 3 floors, 400 inmates, and 1 cop. So that was a dangerous place. No locks on the doors. People, I lived on what they called crack alley. I was on the 3rd floor. Everybody go in the back bathroom, smoke their K2 because it took the cops forever to get there. They'd have a little walk down at the steps. So when a cop was coming up, they'd be like, hey, yo, they're coming. And you stop doing what you're doing. So 1, 2 in the morning, dude, dudes open up your cell door, walk in high as a kite on accident. I had an incident where, man, I tried to bring this kid on for an interview. I had to piece him up at 2 in the morning. I jumped out of the bed. Bah, 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 bah. Like, I didn't know, you're shocked. So least restrictive, but probably the most dangerous was alone. As crazy as if you get killed in Big Sandy, you're usually getting killed for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so what situation would you say was the most dangerous that you were part of? I'm sure you were part of different prison riots. You were part of all types of different things. But what would you say was maybe the most dangerous personal situation that you were in your federal prison?
The most dangerous situation that I was in, I would say there was 2 different ones.
Yeah.
One was at Big Sandy when the independent whites were trying to get rid of the white gang members. That was pretty intense. Didn't kick off, but was definitely intense. We're all out there for a meeting, and people that ran the car, Stevie Burke, Adam, they're like, look, we're going out there. You got this, you got that. Here, here's 2 knives. You 3 are going to get this guy. You 3 are getting this guy.
Wow.
We outnumbered the people, but we had a plan of action. You know what I mean? If it happens, this is what's going to happen. And then in Lee County, man, where we had a kid from Ohio, I was in USP Lee, Jonesville, Virginia, who was selling dope, and some black dude from DC stole his shit. And he's like, yo, bro, I'm doing something to this cat. And I'm like, well, look, man, wait till after the count, man, come out. We'll talk about it. Because, back then there was a no hands policy. If you're white, you don't put your hands on blacks. Blacks don't put their hands on whites.
Right.
Spanish don't put their hands on blacks or whites. I mean, it just keeps things more peaceful. And, you can, good men don't have to get jammed up. But we had an incident where he was telling me that. And I'm like, look, right at the 3:30, go back. And I'm like, bro, they're about to do the count. After the count, come outside. Well, he don't listen. He goes back and he does something to the dude. And once he did that, now we're all out on the yard. He did it on the rec move. We're all out there on the yard waiting for him to come out. He don't show up because he jumped on the dude. So now there's whites talking to blacks, trying to, negotiate this. The whole yard is quiet. Cop opens the gun tower, racks the gauge, or the AR-15, whatever he's got up there at the moment. And that was pretty intense. It didn't kick off, but it was intense. Have I seen riots kick off? I've seen some dangerous shit kick off.
Yeah.
In different places. Big Sandy, USP Lee, believe it or not, a lot of things happen there, man.
Wow.
Well, I want to ask you a question. You had a great story. It was about a guy named Danny. And Donnie, I'm sorry, Donnie. And Donnie was somebody that you trusted. You brought into your home. And he wound up wearing a wire and was responsible for putting you away for a long time. And you talked about how you got out of prison and you seen him at a gas station and he was like 100 pounds. His girlfriend had no teeth. And I'm sure you were sitting in prison probably for years thinking about this guy, thinking about hurting this guy. Is that when you knew you changed? Why don't you explain that story again? Because it's a great story, just so,
So Donnie Molinari was a dude that, I looked up to in my neighborhood. He had all the cool ass bikes. He was a drummer. And eventually, he starts using drugs with his dad. And, later on in life, I'm selling him drugs. And eventually he does some stuff where he goes to a rehab. He gets out of the rehab. He calls me. He's like, hey, man, can you give me a job? Help me out, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should reverse this a little bit. I see Donnie walking down the street in the rain. I know his mother. I know his father, pouring down rain. He flags me down. This is in 2002. And he's like, Chad, man, give me a ride, please, bro. And he pretty much explains he stole his mother's TV, can't go back to his mom's.
Wow.
They're going to drive him to rehab tomorrow. They got him a hotel room for the night. Can I help him? Give him a ride. Yeah. And he's soaking wet. I let him in my car. I had a nice Eclipse back then. So I let him in my car and he's like, dude, buy me something to eat. I buy him something to eat. And I'm like, man, you see these cars? This is your life going by you, man. I'm probably at the time I got arrested, I'm probably 23 years old, man. And he's 33? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you're getting too old for this shit, bro. Because I really did like Donnie. I cared about him a little bit. And he's like, well, look, bro, I'm going to rehab tomorrow. When I get out, could you give me a job? I'm like, yeah, man, give me a call. I take him to the hotel. Long story short, he gets out of the rehab, and he's staying with these people. His father ends up dying. He's got nowhere to go. So he's staying with these people like, bro, they're getting high, man. I need help, dude. And I let him stay in my basement, man. I'm like, dude, you can stay here, save your money. I give him a job. He robs me. He robs me and he goes to the police. And there's a bigger part of this story that just happened 2 weeks ago. So anyway, he goes to the police. I end up getting arrested. I get a 40-year sentence, right? He testifies at the trial. And I see him. And he's like, hey, bro, I'm sorry. I'm like, dude, just get away from me, dude. You know, pretty much you said that same shit back then, you know, like when you
that's what I
So
found
you saw him 2 weeks ago?
No, I got something bigger that goes with that story.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes to the cops, but I run into the cop 2 weeks ago, and I'll tell you about it in a minute.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I see him again a year and a half later, and he waves me down. This time I stop and I talk to him, and we do an interview. And for real, man, I forgive the cat, man. And I had to realize at some point that Donnie didn't send me to prison. Chad sent Chad to prison. And I interview him on my YouTube channel, Blood on the Razorwire TV. Let me get a plug in.
And I got it running the crosshair too, people. Chad Marks, Blood on the Razorwire. It's been running there for a whole show.
I appreciate you. So anyway, you know, I interview him and I forgive him, man. And he's like, I'm scared. And I'm like, dude, there's no reason to be scared. So anyway, the cop that he, you know, works with and all of that stuff, I go take my wife out to eat 2 weeks ago. Real nice restaurant. We walk in there. They're having a party for, I think it was a homicide investigator is retiring. And I see this lady like staring at me, right? And I'm like, she's like, Chad Marks? And I'm like, I know your face. And she says her name, and she's the case agent. And I talked to her for about 30 minutes. Me, her, and my wife talked. And she's shocked that me and my wife are back together. And, you know, we got kids now. And she's just like, you know, she pretty much told me that she's sorry that I got the time that I got. She made it clear that I deserved to go to prison, which I agree. But she didn't, she said she didn't think I deserved 40 years. And she was happy that, you know, I was able to, you know, make it out through the First Step Act, through Trump and my rehabilitation. She's like, look, I'm glad you're living a good life, you know, and I hope that you continue to do good and make it, you know, and pretty much, man, that was like my final part of my closure, I guess, to see her, you know what I mean? And, you know, like, hey, and of course I asked her some questions that I wanted to know answers to, and she answered the majority of them. And at the end of the meeting, dude, she gave me, it wasn't a meeting, so I shouldn't use the word meeting, but after the end of us, you know, just talking, we're at a restaurant bar, Tony D's, real nice Italian place. And she, you know, she gave me a hug, bro, and wished me the best of luck. And for me to go from having that animosity and the anger all them years to running into the case agent and giving her a hug and wishing her the best and her wishing me the best was, you know, maybe it's my full circle, my closure, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And you know, when you talk about the system, so, you know, for me personally, it always bothered me when you see these older prisoners that, you know, they're in their 80s, 90-year-olds. They're not obviously going to go back into a life of crime. And so I never understand why as taxpayers, we need to continue to pay for people that are older that's going to have intensive medical care that's needed for chronic conditions. And why not just let them go home, be able to be with their family, die with a little bit of dignity where there's not any, you know, it's less costly to taxpayers as well. And the likelihood of these folks committing crimes is nil to none. And so that's what I would like to see. And it's always sad whenever I see older prisoners that they get those compassionate release denials. But what are the three biggest changes you'd like to see in the system?
Well, all right. I'll tell you that in 1 second. But you know what you talked about, I want to touch on that because it's something that bothers me too. I was in FMC Lexington. I've seen plenty of good guys up there die, man, that deserved to fucking get out of prison and they didn't.
Yeah.
So I wrote an article for Criminal Legal News. Lester Holt went into that prison in Louisiana, and I was a staff writer for Prisoners Legal News, Criminal Legal News while I was in prison and when I got out. So he goes into this prison and there's this old dude in the infirmary and he's got a piece of candy and he can't get it open. And he asked Lester Holt, you know, he's got, you know, he's shaking. The guy's got to be 90 something years old. And he asked him, man, please just open the candy. Lester Holt opens the candy for him, puts it in his mouth, walks out. And he says, man, I just, you know, I'm emotional. I can't handle this. I think that, you know, whenever crimes are committed, there has to be consequences, right? There has to be.
Sure.
Else we live in a lawless land.
Mhm.
But I think, some guys, once you get to a certain age, you're not a threat to public safety. Just let them go
No.
home and die. Just just do the right thing.
Yeah.
I had a guy that it broke my heart, man. I used to go up to that medical unit and I helped John. This guy's name was John. He was out of Ohio. He had
Mm.
dementia, couldn't remember nothing. Sometimes he would leave the medical unit, they wouldn't even know, and he'd be down in the chow hall eating 3-4 times. Like, John, what the hell are you doing? He's like, I'm eating lunch. But
Mm.
John was just an old man, had stacked 924Cs, had a bunch of bank robberies, right? Had like 1,000
Mm.
years. His lawyer
Yeah.
pled him guilty to 1,000 years at the
Wow.
age of 50. He wasn't going to hurt anybody. We did his compassionate release. We tried to get him out. They wouldn't release him. Never
Mm.
really committed violence, just a bank robber. So, and he ends up dying, man. John died in the medical unit after I got out. He was my buddy, man. I'd take him out for walks, cook him meals, call his sister who used to send him money, let her know what's going on with him. I tried to help him. But anyway, the things that need to change, I think that they need accountability, right? How do you do that?
Mhm.
How do you do that within the
Yeah.
Federal Bureau of Prisons? You put cameras on these people, man, and they can capture everything, right? Some of these
Mhm.
cops go in your cell, destroy your cell, treat you like shit, talk to you like shit. They feel like they got the bigger gang, but really what they got is dudes ain't trying to get more time. That stops a lot of people from doing shit to the cops. I mean, when you
Yeah.
got a life sentence, it doesn't really matter. But even then, guys are like, man, I don't want to lose my commissary. I don't want to
Mm.
go to the 80X for 5 years, but really I'd like to smash this dude for just disrespecting me. I've done a bunch of
Mhm.
stories on Tommy Silverstein on my channel. I'm sure you guys know.
Yeah.
I think, man, later on in life, did there need to be punishment? Of course, there needs to be punishment. But was he this demon that if you let him out, he was going to get a knife and start killing everybody? No,
And
he
the amount of
wasn't.
time that he spent in the hole was cruel
Yeah.
when you think about it.
I mean, I did a video in his words, the affidavit that he wrote in the beginning. I just scream in the beginning of the video, because that's how you feel. I did 14 months in the hole one time straight. And it does destroy you mentally and emotionally. And eventually you just get used to doing the same shit like a circus animal. You wake
Mm.
up, you work out, you get your breakfast, you go out to the yard for an hour, you come to the little rec cage they put you in, you come back, you take a nap. When they bang on your door, you hear the flaps popping, you get up, you eat your lunch, then you might read your book. I mean, you got a
Mhm.
program. And there were times, dude, when I was in the hole, I thought I wasn't going to make it during that 14 months or whatever I was in there. I really was mentally and emotionally destroyed at times.
Mm.
So I think there has to be accountability, man. The other thing I would do is, let people earn their way out of prison. Not this
Mhm.
bullshit, man. Do 30 years and we'll figure this out later. No,
Right.
you want to, and I've said this on numerous interviews. You come in here, you want to sell drugs, you want to be a gang member, you want to stab people in prison. We got a place for you. We'll send you over to Big Sandy. But you're
Mhm.
25 years old. You got a 20-year sentence. You want to work your way out, then we're going to let you. We got this 8-year program over here at USP Lee. Your first 2 years, you're going to learn character education. That includes waking up, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, pulling your pants up, putting your belt on, learning how to go do an interview and not look like a dummy, hair all, yo,
Mhm.
what's up? Yo, I need it.
Mm.
That shit
Yeah.
ain't going to get it. Then the next 2 years,
Mhm.
we got a trade school. Next 2 years, you get a college education, bro. So I
That's
say
great.
8-year program because it's going to take a little time for you to get into the program and get going. But I think there should be a 6 to 8-year program. Character education, give you a skill, educate you, get your GED in the first year, whatever we have to do, and then you get out. But
That's a great idea. Why won't they do that though?
why do you think?
Yeah.
Prisons create jobs, right? Let's just look at it. Let me give you
Yeah.
a lesson real quick. Prison, everything there, right? From the basketballs to the footballs, a company makes the razor wire, another company makes the fencing, lawyers, judges, just everything. Teachers, case managers, unit managers. It just creates a whole bunch of jobs and let's keep it real, bro. I mean, honestly, the world's crazy, isn't it?
Oh,
I
Mhm.
mean, you could go from the Kia boys to dudes just walking up. Like I just did a story on the kid from Philly that just
Mhm.
escaped. But this dude's just
Yep.
going around killing people, bro. At 16, dude was a
Mhm.
serial killer at 16. What do you really do with a cat like that? Is he redeemable?
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, I would like to say yeah, but probably not. It's just the
Mhm.
reality, man. You can't have dudes out here just doing whatever.
So you do believe there's people that they're not redeemable, that they need to be locked away
well, I'm sure you've seen a lot of those.
yeah,
I've
for
seen some guys
for
that done
life.
some vicious things to kids, man, that probably should never ever get out. You know what I mean? I've read some vicious cases, bro.
Mm.
I've interviewed an agent on my channel, an active agent. He had sent me a case like a month and a half ago, and I'm like, I can't find it while we're on here, but dude, I mean, this dude just did some really bad shit, man, to his own kids. Like, no, dude, I mean, you probably shouldn't be in the community, dude. No.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you a question that you actually brought up something I never even thought about before, and I should have thought about it. Food being served in these prisons, the quality has gone down so dramatically over the years. And why do you think that is? Is it because is it up to the warden really to put out good food? Can the warden actually change the quality of food in these places?
Well, let me tell you this, right? Food is comfort in prison. If you feed the people, they're going to relax. If you don't feed them, what are they going to do? They're going to steal, rob, because no one wants to be hungry. One of the best wardens ever, I think, in the FBOP was Warden Rios. When he was at Big Sandy, one of the most dangerous prisons in the country, I seen him walk in the chow hall personally. He'd wear that, one-piece flight suit, BOP uniform, and he's the warden. He'd pick up a tray and he'd wait in line, and he'd get served. And I seen him send the food back. Tell him it tastes like shit. Oatmeal tastes like nothing. No, take this shit down. Chow's over with. We're coming back in an hour and a half to eat. Fix the food. Because he understood prison, man. Now you got these dudes that go to college and they're 35 years old. They don't know shit. Maybe they never worked in a prison. The budget, I mean, of course they slashed the budget, but if you want to keep, people all right, you probably would save more money by putting more money in the budget from, the stuff that you're going to lose in overtime for riots and, murders and all of that type of stuff. You got to feed the people. They took the microwaves out in federal prison. They don't have microwaves anymore, which is absolutely ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Dudes want to cook, man. They want to eat. That's part of their life. Some dudes hustled from the microwave. They made meals and sell meals in prison. And it's just, food is comfort. And if you got bad food, you got a bad prison.
And and from there, I'm going to take it to a guy that Rob Rosso. And I got a call from him yesterday. And Rob, at the time when he got in trouble, I wanted to bring him to my house here and help him get into some type of program. But unfortunately, when he was here, I told him he couldn't come to my house because he was so high.
Yeah.
And Rob called me yesterday and apologized to me for it. But he also, and this is Rob right here. He's one of those stories about, this is just my opinion, a guy that is institutionalized and can't get it out of his system. And but Rob, most of all, something he said to me yesterday that really made me think about the system. Rob says, Lee, he's sitting here in the federal system again. He goes, I can't even get razors in here. He says it's nothing that it used to be. He goes, in the last couple of years, this place has gotten so much worse than when I was here last time. And he's describing how nobody there can get the things that they used to get. They're literally making people suffer. They can't even shave their beards. So how would you like to touch on that?
I talked to Rob yesterday too. And honestly, I sent him a couple of dollars so he could try to buy some commissary items so he can talk to his wife. And I told him, how's it feel to be back? And I asked him that for a reason, because I want him to feel it. I want him to learn to appreciate what he had and what he lost.
Yes.
Sometimes you forget that stuff so fast. I think this is more of a wake-up call for Rob. People that don't know Rob, he was a gangster in prison. At one point in time, he was a drug addict in prison. But he turned his life around. He's a phenomenal writer. And he ends up getting out of prison. And now he's back in prison. Because at the end of the day, and I always tell him, he's like, you don't understand addiction. I said, bro, I'm not looking for no excuses in life. But my thing is, I had a 40-year sentence and I'm free. Your thing should be, hey, you had a life sentence and now you're free. And whatever it takes to stay free, you should probably do that. I mean, as far as doing the right thing, staying out of the way, going to get a job, treating your wife with respect and just enjoying this, bro. I live in a neighborhood now where I walk around and the neighbors wave to you. I used to
They've been locking their door a few years back.
Yeah. And now I can walk around and I moved out of that apartment. I lived in a nice apartment there, but I was shell shocked from I did have PTSD. I just look at the trees, bro, and the grass. And I'm like, damn, man, I live in this neighborhood. When I was a kid, I used to think this is where all the rich people live, man. I was like those kids. Well, I live there now. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I'm rich, but I live here, and it's peaceful, man. You just appreciate that shit. And I think that Rob needed this, man. Maybe he needed to go somewhere where he can't shave and his neck's itching, and he's like, man, I don't want to do this ever again. Because now maybe you'll think about those small things. Sometimes it's the small things that keep you out of prison.
And he mentioned to me that, you know, he doesn't even remember doing half the stuff that he did. And as we all know, he has a beautiful wife that loves him. And but you know, to me, I remember the first day he got out, he said he had a beer. Me and him used to always argue on the phone because I say to him, "You had a beer. That means you failed. That means you're not clean." Rob came out and never got clean, and never really gave it an attempt. You know, if you're drinking a beer, you know, you're not clean. And it just escalated, and it was a very sad thing to watch. Do you think a lot of guys coming out, and I'm sure you know a lot of these people coming out like him that are institutionalized, they're in there for 25 years almost, and they come out thinking, you know, how do they adapt to the world? That's part of the thing. They need to adapt to the new world that they're coming out into. This is a whole new world from 25 years ago. Cell phones, everything's different. Do you think that these prisoners are released and taught how to adapt into the world, or are they just thrown back out into the system?
I think it comes from within, man. Like you said, walking out on the first day and having a beer is probably the wrong thing. Your mindset's wrong. That usually comes from you were in prison drinking wine and moonshine or doing Suboxone or whatever. You got to walk out here with a different mind frame. Like, yo, I'm going to go do what I got to do to stay out here. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to, enjoy the time with my wife. I don't give a shit if all you do is pay your bills at the end of the week and order a pizza. Or you can lay back on your couch and watch, whatever you want to watch with your wife, man. Like those are the things that really matter. When you're in prison for so long, you dream about these things. I don't give a shit if you're using drugs in prison or what. You dream about, man, you just want the opportunity. I used to tell myself, not people, but myself. I used to say, man, I just want to get out of here and be normal. And what is normal? My normal was coming home and, getting a job or whatever I had to do, having a wife and, eventually maybe having kids, which there was points where I thought that would never happen, but I did. So that was my normal, man. Being able to drive down the street and know that you got a license and you don't care if the cops are there. Or if you're driving with somebody, the police. I'm like, man, I don't give a shit. I don't care if the police are there. I got a license, bro. I'm doing the right thing. Doesn't bother me that the police are there.
Yeah.
But, I got friends from back then like, the cops are on the right. I'm like, dude, that shit don't even matter to me.
It's kind of funny because I avoided the police for several years. They were looking for me. And, even to this day, now that I'm legal and everything, if a siren pulls up behind me, I want them. It's like I'm proud when they come to and here it is. Here's my insurance card, because you're absolutely right. We go through this part of our life where we don't have any of that stuff in the vehicle. And we watch every cop car. If they come toward us, we turn down this street. And once you don't have to do it, but there's still a part of you that wants to do it because cop sirens scare you when you want it.
Yeah. I don't have times where I want to anymore, bro. I'm just keeping it real. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm just nonchalant about some stuff. I just don't give a shit because I feel like, I'm not committing crimes. I don't have to run. I don't have to hide. And when you start doing that shit, that's when they pull you over. They notice that you're avoiding them, right? Yeah. And now that I'm legal and I just do everything that I'm supposed to do, I never get pulled over. So,
I have go ahead. I just had a question on Rob Rosso, but go ahead. Finish your point.
Like I was saying, I was in that restaurant. They're having a retirement party. Like these dudes that are retiring or they're at this party, like they were beat cops back then, in my neighborhood. And, not on no racial shit, but I was probably like one of the only white drug crack dealers back then. So everybody knew me. And, when she had walked away, like I was saying, I seen her and dudes walking up. She's like, that's Chad Marks. And she knew that I seen her say it. And she was like, our eyes met. And they're like, and it's just like, man, you know what? That they're thinking of the old Chad, man. I'm the new Chad, I'm a father today. I'm a husband today. I'm a business owner today. I'm a person that appreciates my freedom. But I'm not, dude, I'm in a room full of cops, like in a restaurant full of cops having a retirement party. It didn't bother me in one bit. Didn't even care.
Yeah. But a couple of things on Rob I wanted to touch on. So this is a couple of statements he's made. And I just want to get your thoughts on it. And then I want to ask about, his safety. if he goes back in. So Rosso had talked about where he was friends with Joey Testa, and he said that I guess him and Testa got into a beef, and he said that he purposely set with Chomos because he'd rather be with them than to be around Joey Testa. So when I hear that, I just think of that's just a sense of immaturity in Rosso. He just never seemed to grow up. And so, what are your thoughts of that? Because wouldn't sitting with Chomos be one of the worst things a person could do?
Well, Rob's the type of dude where he would do what he wants to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he didn't like Joey. A
Yeah.
lot of people have, said that they don't like Joe Testa. Sometimes
Did you know him, or did you
I didn't know
Joey?
Joe personally, no, but I've
okay.
been with dudes that have been in prison with him.
Yeah.
There's dudes that you're around that were gangsters in the street, and now they're like the head orderly. They're waxing the floor, and the cop
Yeah.
calls them, and they're like, "Hey," they're right there with the cop. I'm
Oh, I
not saying
see.
that about
Yeah.
Joe, but I mean, I've heard stories like that about him. Where
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a cop or he's telling on people, but
No.
them dudes do become institutionalized, and all they got is the prison, and they're miserable. A lot of times, those guys are miserable, and they hate all the other prisoners. So the only people that they'll talk to is the cops, right? You're working for the cop, you're the orderly, and whatever. Did he go sit with the Chomos, Rob? Probably. He probably did do that. So they would be like, "Oh, Rob's a piece of shit." A lot of New York guys are, them old Italian New York guys and stuff. They're like, how they talk. Hey,
So
look,
it's to
man,
send a
we're
message is why he would do something, or a person would do something like that then to
Yeah,
the person.
he was just telling Joey Testa to go fuck himself, and they're probably over like, Rob's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's look at that scumbag. He's with the moles now. That's where he belongs. But let me tell you something. If you're on that gangster shit, you probably shouldn't even be in a prison with them, right? You should just go over there and smash them.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. Like when I went to a low, you would always hear these dudes talking about these moles because they're there. I was only there 9 months. I was trying to get out. I'm not smashing anybody unless you do something to me. And dudes would say that shit. I'm like, well, man, you should go whoop them, bro. You talk about them every day, how much you hate them, go fuck them up. Or dudes like, man, I hate being in a low. Well, if you hate it, man, just you can get out of here real quick. Just go handle your business. Don't be a part-time tough guy. Be an all-the-time tough guy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of part-time tough guys in prison.
And I say that because in the mob genre, a lot of people started attacking Rob, and don't get me wrong. But I was saying to myself, these same guys that are being tough guys attacking Rob, if they probably knew them inside, they would never do that.
Right.
If I was Rob, this is what I would have did, right? Rob should have stayed his path. Talk about federal prison, true crime, because he's a good writer. He's a good researcher.
Yes.
He did write some really good articles in his life. And he could have talked about the dudes that he was with in prison. He didn't have to take it personal. If Tommy Reynolds said something about someone, and you didn't have to come out and tell that story. You could tell what people are interested. What is Tommy Reynolds really like? What is Pete Caracappa really like? He could have stuck to that instead of going. And I tried to school him, dude. That's one thing I don't do. I don't get into talking about people or it's just not my thing, bro, because it doesn't work out for you in the long run. He could have just told federal prison stories and incidents that he's seen and interviewed people. And, he was around these guys. I mean, he was in Butner. This is where all the old gangsters end up. They retire.
Yeah.
They're sick.
Well, he was telling the truth of knowing Persico, and he would, Bernie Madoff. I mean,
100% he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
You're around people. I was with Teddy for years. Teddy Persico.
Yes.
Yep.
Dude, I mean, he's on his way back now, so.
Oh, he's trying to get out, isn't he?
Or, he got a new case.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on that case, and so,
he's not he wasn't the most intelligent dude, and he was on my softball team, and he sucked. He played left field and he sucked. And but anyway, Rob was around them guys, man, without a doubt.
Well, we can clear that up because a lot of people here are saying that he's so full of BS. I never felt he was. So he did know these guys. He did know Persico. He did know Madoff. There's no doubt.
He knew Tommy Patera.
Patera.
Yeah.
He actually, I think that, I don't know if he ever said this online, but I think that he is the guy that plugged Brandon Sample in with Bernie Madoff to do his compassionate release. Brandon Sample's a former federal prisoner, became a lawyer, probably one of the best post-conviction attorneys in the country, wrote the habeas corpus psych book. I think Rob Rosso was the dude that put them two together, I think.
Yeah.
Him and Rusty Marks.
All those things you could have taught. And I always said this to him too. I said, get away from the mob genre and do your thing. You built your show on being in the prison area.
Yeah.
Go there. That's where you belong. But you know, Rob, he's stubborn as a mule. No one's telling Rob what to do.
I hope he comes home and gets his life together, man.
I do.
Yeah, that's what I hope. And then, we believe, he's the truth. I mean, meaning that, what he's saying is real. He knew mobsters and all that. But what about this industry? Let's talk about the industry that you're in the prison. There's prison reform, prison stories, talking about the YouTube piece of it. So what's your thoughts do you have the same problem that we have in the mob genre where there's frauds? There's people that either embellish what they did or they're just outright liars that have a platform and they're lying. So is that a problem that you have in the prison genre that you're in?
I mean,
with fakes and frauds?
let me say this, right? I'm sure there's people that are, but if people are, into their story and they're getting 200,000 views a video, they're doing better than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my thing ain't, like I said, I own a paralegal and prison consultant firm. That's how I pay my bills, bro.
Yeah.
I don't pay my bills through YouTube. Do I make a little bit of money? Yeah. Do I make good money sometimes? Sometimes I do. But I take care of people. I pay my editor. I pay my moderators. And we do a lot of giveaways, bro. I give more money away than people could imagine. I help people.
You probably get a lot of collect calls every month on your phone bill, don't you?
Not really. Federal prison, they call they pay for their calls from federal.
Yeah.
They're all free.
Oh yeah, there's no collect calls anymore.
Yeah, when Rob called yesterday, the first thing I looked down and I heard it was a prison, I said, I hope they ain't gonna ask me for no damn collect call. But he said he paid for it. Thanks to you, Chad. Thanks to you, he was able to get that phone card, from what I understand yesterday.
I don't know. I looked out for him.
Yeah, you looked out for him, which was
I did, because I know what it's like to be in there and have nothing. So I sent him a couple $. But as far as he goes, like, I lost my train of thought we were talking about, but
yeah, we're talking about frauds in the industry.
Oh yeah.
And
dude, listen, man. My mission is my mission. You know what I mean? Whatever I'm doing, that's what I'm doing. I'm not out here to be like, hey, that guy's full of shit. And whatever you're doing, I don't care. You know what I mean? If
that's the best way to approach it, I think.
And if the viewers want to hear it and you're bullshitting, then that's fine. But it doesn't affect my day. It doesn't change my day. I just approach things differently, like the same way I approach things in prison. Prison respect is the same kind of respect out here. My wife is on me sometimes like, you think everybody has to, your respect is so high compared to, and I'm like, well, I try to respect people and I want people to respect me. And I'm not out here to troll you or to talk bad about you or to destroy your career, or it's not my job, man. Whatever you're doing, you're doing. If you fix cars and you suck at fixing cars, eventually people will be like, man, I'm not going over there because he doesn't know what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think, I don't really want to be a prison genre type of guy. My thing is, and I said this from the beginning, is save kids from life imprisonment and premature death in the streets through our stories and experiences. If we can do that, great. So many people hit me up that got out of prison like, dude, man, you make me never forget that shit, bro, which makes me put on my work boots and I go to work every day. And if we're doing that for one person, then we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Would I like to have 1 million views every day? Of course. And then I could really show you, then I'm not one of them dudes that, getting that money like that would be out here just blowing it. I'm going to help the people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. How did you approach how did the brand so what caused your brand to take off the way it did? So my understanding is you've been in 3 years or 2 years on YouTube? And
I don't know, about 2.5 years.
Same amount. You started the same time as me, and you're much bigger than I am.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Is it just the right? Obviously, you are entertaining. You're informative. You've got a loyal brand, loyal listeners and viewers. But it's also about you. You've done something right. So how did you approach your brand and grow it the way you did? I know also part of it's probably your discipline, because you start your day off early. You start at 5 a.m. You do your work. on helping your clients, and by 11 o'clock, you've done more than most people have done all day. So maybe you could talk about your brand and how you grew it.
So let me be straight up with you, right? I said I didn't know anything about YouTube, knew very little about technology. Had a disagreement with someone. I told him, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to outwork you. You want to be in a competition? I'm going to outwork you. I can do a video every day. Let's go. Because I'm a writer. I'm all the way in with legal stuff, and that's what I did. But honestly, man, someone really did help me out. There's a person that helped me. A couple people helped me. 1090 Jake, for those that don't know who he is. He was a dude that went to prison, kid from Boston. The dude like posted my stuff on Instagram, and I got like 10,000 subscribers in like 2 or 3 days. So
that's
he helped
amazing.
me. I mean, it
Wow.
didn't get me to 127, whatever. Where are we at? 126,
Yeah.
127 somewhere. So he helped me out. I feel like I got something in my nose and I want to itch it, but I can't even hear. Anyway, it's been going on for about 30 minutes. And then, believe it or not, dude, Johnny Mitchell. I went on Johnny Mitchell's show. Another prison cat that people talk about, but I personally like the cat. I went on his show and got a bunch of, subscribers, 5,000, 6,000. And I talked to his producer. He told me some things to do and I did them. There was another dude that used to come on my channel and donate. He said, bro, start doing shorts right now. Because YouTube was pushing shorts. Yeah. And I did a couple shorts that got like millions and millions of views.
Oh, and wow.
I just put a short out the other day. Let me tell you something. I'm going to pull this up while we're talking because I'm going to tell you, people are saying bad stuff on this little short that I got. It's got 283,000 views with this girl.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So, and I just put this up, 5 days ago? So my subscribers have been taken off. But people are like, oh, man, you don't know nothing about what you asked and this and that. But they don't know me. I sold drugs in that neighborhood forever. So I was like, hey, you look dope sick. But that's because I got other videos of her puking on the side of the church, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't put them up because my wife was like, oh, if my mom ever seen that, don't do that. So that's wwhy I asked her if she was dope sick. They're like, bro, you don't even know what you're talking about. She's on crack. She's not dope sick. But anyway, I put that video up. And I think them shorts, man, putting up shorts does help your channel because YouTube's pushing shorts. Then they quit pushing them. And now they've been pushing them the last week. So put some shorts up. You got a YouTube channel, put some shorts up. And I also think some of the interviews that I did, I interviewed Troy Kell. I mean, he was the dude that really opened the prison genre thing. Like people were really into prison after they seen Gladiator Days, right? And then he never did another interview ever again until he did mine because he felt that HBO painted their own narrative to turn him into this racer monster. And he said some things he probably shouldn't have said when he killed the dude. But, I got the case files. I read everything. I read the letters that, dude was writing to his family and, I hate this dude. I hate these people. And, it did become a racial thing. I mean, he doesn't necessarily admit that in the interview.
Sure.
But, we did that interview. I interviewed the judge that went to the White House with Kim Kardashian for a kid named Chris Young. Chris Young's a friend of mine. I interviewed Chris Young. The dude that they were going to Trump to get out. We spent, many years together in federal prison. So I had some pretty big interviews. I interviewed Harlan Protas, John Gleason's best friend. I probably could have interviewed Gleason, but once he goes on 3 or 4 shows, if I wasn't the first, I'm just kind of like, But he was my lawyer. I don't think he liked me all the time.
Yeah,
but probably shouldn't say
you guys are both type A personalities,
Yeah. But yeah, we had some good interviews on here. I brought on former people. I brought on a Mexican mafia, ex-Mexican mafia dude. People don't get them interviews. Not that I'm better than anyone. I brought on the dude the other day that was with Tommy Silverstein and, Barry Mills. And he was a young kid and he ended up killing a dude in prison, did 30 years straight. Wow. So, we got some pretty good interviews. And you know what, man, I think no one knows, dude. If I knew, like the lithogram and all, then I'd be rich, right? YouTube has made people that couldn't make money probably nowhere else in the world millionaires.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. You never know what'll go viral. You'd think saying this is just a little 30-second stupid whatever, couple of cats doing something and it gets 10 million views or whatever. It's just
look,
crazy.
I got that girl 5 days. It's been up 283,000 views. Yeah. I didn't expect that on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed a homeless guy an hour later, and that's got like 100,000 views.
Wow.
Chad, I'd like to ask you a question. How important was this man to getting people out of prison?
Very
I had to
important.
get that CNN thing up there. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, it was very important, right?
Mhm.
Let's just be honest. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be out of prison right now. He did pass the First Step Act. A lot of it
Yeah.
was a push from Jared Kushner and Ivanka. They really pushed him. He called Mitch McConnell at the last minute, burning the midnight oil, and said, "Look, I want this shit done. It needs to get done. I want it done." And a lot of that had to do with probably bringing in the African American vote. Just going to keep
Yeah.
it real, right? Real and
Mhm.
raw. And he did it. Trump got it done, and that was the biggest piece of criminal justice reform that we've seen in 100 years.
Yeah.
What
Does
was
it
the
need to be
difference
better? Of
between the
course.
way he did it? Because didn't Obama have something similar to it beforehand?
No, I mean, Obama did the crack amendment. Well, I mean, the Sentencing Commission stuff did the crack amendments under Obama. So that
Right.
helped out a little bit. He did a bunch of clemencies, didn't do nearly as many as he should have. And then Trump came in and did actual criminal justice legislation, not just the Sentencing Commission changing the crack law and, giving you 4 years off, or, we're going to give 2,500 people clemency and let them out. Well, there's dudes in prison that deserve to get out, more than me. Laval Farmer. He's a guy that I like to mention. I just did his compassionate release. This dude deserves to get out of prison more than I did. And he did commit a murder. He was a young kid, committed a murder. He was a blood, went to prison, completed over 500 programs, wrote 4 or 5 programs for the prison, tutors college students, brings kids in from the street. Their parents are like, "Hey, we'd like my son to meet you." And he mentors them. An African-American kid that just from New York City, whose mother took him to the courthouse. And it bothers me when I talk about it. This is one of the cases that I did. And man, I started crying when I did it and told my wife, I can't do this no more today. His mom would put him out on the balcony in New York. And you're subscribed, Simon, would put him out on the balcony at 4 years old in November, standing out on the fire escape because he ate a piece of chicken in his underwear, no socks and shoes. Like, what chance did he have? Then they take him at 5 or 6 years old. They take him to the courthouse, and he never sees his mother again, man. She drops him off. What life is that kid going to have? Always feeling like his mom didn't want him. No matter how nasty and mean she was, in his heart, he felt like, man, my mom don't want me. So I just did that case, man, and I'm hopeful that this cat gets out of prison. But, none of these guys would be able to get out of prison if it wasn't for Trump. And people are like, oh, my God, he said he wants the death penalty for prisoners, drug dealers. Well, he said that last time, too.
He did.
He did say that.
Well, I'm glad I wanted to put that out there because there was some debate going on, but I'm glad you answered that question.
Hey,
And
man,
we're both going to
debate me on
answer
that
one
issue,
more-
I'll debate him.
That's a great idea. But what I wanted to say, we're going to each ask you one more question, and then you've been very nice. You've been here now an hour and 15 minutes. You're the type of guy we could sit down for 24 hours and talk and still have just the tip of the iceberg touched.
Well, I appreciate it.
What I'd like to ask you, if you had to say one person that had the biggest impact on your life that you had to say thank you to every day, who would that be?
It's a black dude, man, that did 25 years in prison, in a racially segregated federal prison because it's racially segregated. His name is Cedric Dean. I was out there doing whatever I was doing in prison, and Cedric's like, look, man, what are you going to do when they change the law and they bring back parole? You go down there and tell them that you had the best heroin on the compound? You go down there and tell them that, man, you got Nike sunglasses? You're going to go down there and tell them that, you got the best sneakers? No, man, you got to come to some of these programs. He said, come to this Leaders Breed Leaders program. And this was probably around 2009, 2010. And I'm like, all right. I went to his program. Didn't really think much. I was all right. Still continued to do what I was doing. And then I finally make it to an FCI. And guess who's on the bus years later? Ain't seen this dude in 4 or 5 years. He's on the bus. He's like, man, what have you done since, we last talked? I said, nothing, man. He said, well, you better start programming, man. So I've just been doing legal work. And then we end up in this prison, Raybrook. We make it to an FCI in New York. And he's like, look, man, write the judge and tell the judge what you're doing. I was like, man, I ain't writing the judge. Well, I did write the judge. He convinced me. I wrote the judge and told him, look, I've been programming for the last year. This is what I'm doing. I just signed up for a college course. And the judge wrote me back. And then, eventually I just met with my judge 4 or 5 months ago with my wife and my 2 little twin boys. I remarried my ex-wife, for those that don't know. Let me see. That's me and her. I remarried her.
Oh,
and then
really
we ended
nice.
up having, they're 16 months old now. We ended up having 2 little twin boys. That's me.
Congratulations. Yeah.
And we're living our best life. But he had the biggest impact on me to tell me, Chad, get your shit together, man. You can't be running around prison holding knives, stabbing people, beating people up, doing all this bullshit, because when they change the law, you're never going to get out.
Where is he now?
He's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Ran for mayor down there. He's got a bunch of reentry houses. I just went down there and met with him about that. We're going to be putting some reentry houses together in my city, I think, very, very soon. But he had the biggest impact on my freedom and who I am as a person today and a man. So really good guy.
James, you have one last question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So, I just want to thank you, Chad, for coming on. I want to, I really am inspired by you. Also, I'm a Christian, believe in Christ, and it means a lot that you have faith as well as, what you're doing for people. So you're giving back. So thank you for that. And so my question is just what's next for Chad Marks? So, what are you going to be doing in the next 1 year and next 5 years? What are your goals? Because I know that you're the type of person that you're a go-getter, you're a type A personality. I know that you have some pretty big goals for the future, and you've accomplished so much already, but I know you've got more. So could you share what you're looking at for the next year or 5 years? Maybe there's going to be a movie, or maybe something big that you're working on.
So, for me, it's more of, we're going to put this reentry house together. That's like my next goal. Dudes are getting out of prison, got nowhere to go. They got no food. They got no clothes. And I really don't want to see people go back to prison. I know what it's like to get out and struggle to try to find a place, no matter how much money you got a felony. They don't want to let you get in this housing complex or this apartment. It is a struggle. You don't know how to use a credit card. You don't know how to do anything. So that's the next thing that we're working on. I have a paralegal company, Freedom Fighters Paralegal and Prison Consultant. We do a lot of stuff here, man. We win a lot of cases. We help a lot of people. Would love
and just so people know, I will put that link underneath here when this video is done. Any link that you need going to Chad will be underneath here, including his. I'll put a link. Where can they buy your book?
Right now, man, I was selling autographed copies, but honestly, dude, I've got so much going on. It's hard, bro. Mail. I got stacks of books and people, I didn't get the book and let's resend it. So really now, man, just jump on Amazon. Read the first 3 chapters for free. Blood on the Razor Wire.
I'm sorry I jumped in there. I just had to get that out, and you can finish.
You're fine. I think people, you'll enjoy the first 3 chapters. And if you like it, you can buy it through Amazon. We'll probably start doing some autographed copies again. I also got the audio book. You can get it from me directly, freedomfighterspc@gmail.com. I narrate my own book. But the biggest thing, man, is also the Blood on the Razor Wire TV, my YouTube channel. I love doing YouTube, bro. I'm not going to lie. It's therapeutic. I like doing it. I enjoy it. It's the hustle, man. Trying to get more subscribers, trying to get the message out, trying to, engage people. And we do a pretty good job. So, and as far as the book goes, I don't know if you guys know, but I had interviewed James Early also on my channel, wrote the best prison book ever, Hot House, No Human Contact. And he just wrote a big blog about my book, man. He read it and he's like, I didn't expect that, but that was real nice of him. Jeff Nadeau actually sent him my way. And the dude that I interviewed that was with Tommy Silverstein, he used to watch Nadeau's show, or still does. And he is the one that hooked him up with Early. So it all came full circle. So forever grateful for Jeff Nadeau for doing that, to sit down, plugging me in with him. But man, yeah, dude, honestly, not because it's mine, but because I do think it would be a hell of a movie. People would like.
I think it'd be great. Exactly, and I'm with you about Jeff. We just interviewed Jeff Nadeau this weekend, so we'll be releasing that pretty soon.
We did a real interview. Matter of fact, your interview and his interview will be coming out the same week. So that's interesting to know. See, Jeff kind of gets a bad rap, but people don't realize that he does things to help people behind the scenes. He's helped me quite a bit. Me and him had a few words a few times, but in general, he does help people behind the scene.
Pretty intelligent dude.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to thank you for being here. And I'm really happy, but this is one of my favorite interviews. I interviewed the author for Sonny Francis's book, along with James. That was an awesome interview. I have the same feeling about this interview. So I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that we ask you some different questions, because a guy like you probably have to be repetitive on your answers a lot.
Yeah, but I've tried to change things up and give people different parts of the story.
Great
Mhm.
story.
It ain't
Yeah.
always the same thing. I do that purposely, but
Well, I'm going to end the show. If you can hang here for 1 minute chat, I would appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the show?
no, just that I appreciate you. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. If you guys want, go check that out. Freedom Fighters, Paralegal, and Prison Consultants. Got a pretty nice website up. Anyone needs help, reach out. And again, man, appreciate you guys. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And people, thank you very much. So much. We really appreciate it. Please sub to the show if you have not. Please hit the like button if you like the interview. And I don't see how you cannot hit the like button on this, people. Take care.
Yeah.